What's up, captains? Welcome back to the other decks. My name is Ryan, and today it's tier list time! Now, apologies if I sound a little bit off or sound a little winded as I'm talking through, but I am just recovering from COVID. But I wanted to create this tier list because OP04 is right around the corner, and honestly, I've been looking forward to it for many moons. Kingdoms of Intrigue is full of multicolor leaders who I think are going to shake up the meta, so I really wanted to create this video for you. And also, you might have noticed I skipped the OP03 tier list. That one, honestly, I recorded it, and I recorded two of them actually, and both of them kind of got lost in editing hell. But just to recap some of the main points from those videos, one, Blurple Crocodile and Sakazuki were both recognized for their service in the In Memoriam segment. Once again, I was high on Black for most of that set, and Pacifista Nami was our God of Jank for OP03. Now, if you're new to my tier list and some of those categories just do not ring a bell, so like what the heck does that mean? We do have a few unique rankings around here, so to give just a quick recap, first we have Meta in all uppercase, less Meta in all lowercase, then we have Meh, the if you win with this deck, you are God tier, and then our special categories, the In Memoriam segment where we remember the fallen decks of yesteryear, and the most important one of all, the God of Jank. Now, before we break down the meta, I do want to quickly let you know that if you are looking to buy singles for any of the decks that I'm talking about in this video, might I suggest TCGplayer.com. It's a great way to buy all of your cards, and it's honestly the site that I've been using to purchase all of my singles, even in the Digimon days. And if you use my affiliate link down below in the description, you can help support the channel with your purchases. And if you do purchase through the link, thank you, I really appreciate it. Speaking of appreciation, let's take a moment to appreciate some decks that have served us well over the year, but have moved on to that great binder in the sky in this set's In Memoriam. Thank you for your service. Now, having Kinemon and Oden in this segment is, I admit, a bit harsh. See, here's the thing, they just absolutely get no support this set, because they run off of Green Wano, right? And from a competitive standpoint, they actually probably should be in the Meh category, just because you run the same builds as you did in OP02, OP03, if you're running those types of decks. You haven't lost anything there, you just haven't gained anything. But realistically, I wasn't going to be talking about them in this tier list, and so In Memoriam they went. However, congrats to Blurple Kaido and Blurple Crocodile for being the first decks to rise from the grave of the In Memoriam. I will be talking about those decks later. And then for the sake of speed, I am going to go through a couple of the tiers and just blanket statement and highlight a couple of key things there. But with that said, let's talk about if you win with this deck, you are God tier. And here they are. Unfortunately, Blurple Croc didn't make it that far from the grave. And the reason being is that blue and purple Baroque works just don't have great synergy here. You know, here's the thing. That deck can still be defensive as all get out, right? But I think it will honestly struggle. And unfortunately, one of the new decks does appear here as well, and that is the purple and yellow Crocodile. Mostly because purple and yellow don't synergize well with each other right now. And here's the thing, I think both colors do favor having larger bodies on the board, which actually kind of hurts in OP04 because OP04 gives us a lot more board control and a lot more removal abilities. And yes, I know I'm a Garp stan too. It hurts to put Garp in here. And you know, maybe I need to experiment more, but red and black just really really clash with each other. Because I wanted to go Straw Garp to do, you know, to search for Gear 4th Luffy, to search for King Kong Gun, but that requires, honestly, running mainly red, splashing in black as your secondary color, and it just doesn't have any great synergy with Garp's ability. And then if you go navy heavy, well, at that point you might as well just be running a different deck, right? And the last tier I want to do sort of a broad brushstroke over is the meh category. And for these, I think these will all be pilot dependent, but for the most part, these are either, you know, weakened decks or just less efficient leaders for their colors. Some standouts though. Issho, another new deck that enters the meta relatively low. Here's the thing, right? You can run primarily navy cards with, you know, adding in some blocker law, splashing it in with some Rosinante, right? But to make Issho work well, it does feel like you're forced to splash in some green supernovas. And honestly, it just makes me wonder whether or not I should just run pure navy with a different leader, right? That said, I am personally excited about Issho. I'm definitely going to be building the deck, trying to, you know, build some spice around it, but I do think it's kind of middle of the road when it comes to the actual meta. Nami is another deck that I think is going to be pilot dependent. Getting an East Blue Searcher is great, which is awesome. So I think that the deck has a lot of upside, right? But I think it does require a lot of practice to get the consistency down. If you are patient enough as a pilot to put in that time and you want to make Nami work, go for it. Once again, Nami is in meh, but really high upside. And Ace is down in here, mostly because I'm assuming that the current ban list is still in place. But now that we've gotten those decks out of the way, let's get into the details of the OP04 meta, starting in card order, which means we're starting off with Zoro. Alright, this one's going to be easy. Zoro is still meta! Red is still very strong in the set, even though it doesn't get generic support in OP04. But if you've seen a Zoro deck over the last few months, it pretty much operates the same way. Maybe we'll see more of a mid-rangey control style Zoro appear, but for the most part, it's going to be the same Zoro that you've seen. Similarly, Law is also still meta! In fact, I do think that it is better than Zoro. While Law does face some of the same issues where it doesn't get any generic support from this set, you can tech in some cards like Dellinger or Sugar to give your opponent some additional headaches, right? But really the ranking with Law is that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's kind of the feeling I have with Law. I think we're going to see a lot of the same Wano Supernova builds that we've come to know and love. Next up is everyone's favorite Blue Doffy, and I'm going to say that he's less meta, but honestly he's still pretty high up. Honestly, I think that Blue is one of the biggest beneficiaries to the new cards in Kingdoms of Intrigue. So, Doffy does get a little bit of a bump just because of the additional control cards, but the foundation of the deck still remains the same. Admittedly, this might be a little high, but that's mostly because I know that there are going to be people out there who just want to play this deck no matter what happens. So, Blue Doffy, pretty high up in less meta. Next up, Blurple Kaido. Blurple Kaido is back, and I think he's less meta right behind Doffy, right? Having an Animal Kingdom Pirate Searcher is great because you can find your Onigashima, you can find a new Blue Kaido, but really the reason why it's kind of up here is because the blue and purple Animal Kingdom synergy just is a lot better than the Baroque Works synergy, say with Blurple Crocodile, and that's really what differentiates the two. That said, Blurple Kaido is probably still a little high up here, higher than he should be, but mostly that's because there's actually some excitement around the deck finally. Still, some of the problems that it has with the actual meta of the game is tough, right? Blurple Kaido still favors big characters, which is problematic in this particular meta. Alright, next up is Kid, and Kid is kind of in an interesting spot, right? He's still a very good generic green leader, but green's taken a little bit of a back seat in this meta. Sure, you can continue to run the Wano Supernovas or even the film package, but to be honest, there's a better film leader out there. Still decent, but I'm going to put him in middle of the road of less meta. Next up though is arguably the biggest beneficiary of the set, and that's Blue Crocodile. Hold on, I need a cough drop. Blue has a ton of ways to return cards to hand or even bottom of the deck, and as Crocodile is a great generic blue leader, he can utilize those cards like Red Rock, like 3000 Worlds, to control your opponent's board. And because of that, I do think that he's meta! Right behind Zoro, actually. I'm pretty high on Blue Crocodile. Next up is Whitebeard, and I am assuming for this that the ban list will continue through. That said, it's still a strong deck thanks to some of its high-powered cards. However, I think the biggest problem with Whitebeard right now is that going tall strategy is actually hurt by cards like Red Rock, or even cost reducers like Olympus. So, while he's still meta, he's right below Zoro and ahead of Croc in this tier list. Alright, next up, it's Smoker. And once again, I'm probably going to be high on Black and say that he's also meta. But Black is hurting a bit this set, in the sense that most of the support that it would have wanted did go to the Dressrosa type cards. That said, I like Smoker into Zoro and Law, so that alone kind of allows it to have a spot in the meta. And there's still the very scary top end of it, which involves Kuzans, Isshos, and maybe even some Shanks that's kind of teched in, right? That said, he is at the tail end of meta. Moving on to Smoker's counterpart, Lucci. I think he's a step below in less meta. Personally, I like Smoker over Lucci as a Navy leader, and while the CP package does get a little bit additional support thanks to Stussy, I don't think that there's enough for it to get past some of the other decks that we're talking about here. And I'm going to be honest, admittingly, Smoker and Lucci is a bit of a toss-up when it comes to leader, and I do think that it comes down to pilot preference. But I do prefer that 7k attack from Smoker over the 2 swings I can get from Lucci at the, cost of my hand size. So Lucci is less meta for me. Katakuri is another leader that I kind of struggle to rank, right? He seems to be the preferred mono yellow leader and can consistently hit 7k. I do think that red is still a rough matchup for yellow, and now blue has, even more ways to return and bottom deck some of our top end of the deck. However, I do think that he is still meta, placing him right above Smoker but below Crocodile. That said, friend of the channel, StrawHatsAreCool, did mention to me in his stream that there's 2 new yellow cards that seem pretty interesting for yellow, Capone Gang Beige as well as a new Sanji, and they have some really interesting triggers. So I'm excited to see if Katakuri players can implement some of those cards into their strategy. By the way, shout out to StrawHatsAreCool. Excellent content creator, does great matches, gameplay, and deck profiles. He's almost close to 500 subs as of this recording, so get him to 500 subs, let's get him to 1k, go support that man. Now, along the same lines as Katakuri, Yellow Big Mom is poised to see a return. She gets some additional homies and more triggers to put in her life, so she could actually see some improvements going into the OP04 meta. That said, I acknowledge that I am a Big Mom truther, right? And will probably be ranking her much higher than most people because of that. That said, it's my tier list. So, for me, she is in the top end of less meta, right behind Doffy. See, here's the thing, I couldn't in good conscience put her any higher than that because Big Mom, like a lot of some of the other decks that we've been talking about, likes big characters, right? She likes her 10 cost Big Mom, her 7 cost Big Mom, her 8 cost Katakuri, right? And the problem is, all of those characters just end up getting Red Rocked out of existence, so it hurts. That said, she's up there for me. No one can tell me I'm wrong. And then wrapping up the mono yellow train is Yamato. Listen, I was down on Yamato before OP04, but with the additional support, I have increased optimism, right? That said, it's still a very risky strategy, right? Especially if you're operating in that 2 life range. And with Gear 4's Luffy existing as an opponent, right? Honestly, I don't think we've seen such a prominent double attacker in the meta thus far. So honestly, it kind of forces you to go a little bit more aggressive with your strategy, right? Kind of gotta take care of things before Gear 4th Luffy gets out of hand. I think based on the pilot, Yamato does have a lot of upside. But for a majority of players, it's a bit of a risky play. So for most people, I would say that Yamato is less meta, right behind Blurple Kaido. But I do think that in the right hands, I think this deck can give any other deck in the meta a run for its money. And now we move on to new leaders, starting with Vivi. While I'd hoped Vivi would be awesome, there's just something about her that seems a little bit slow. But all of the pieces are there for Vivi to be great, right? 2 of the strongest colors in the meta right now in red and blue, has built-in draw, which is nice, and can give things a rush. There's some fun combos here, but I think that, we as a play group need to play test more to see what combo of cards actually unlocks Vivi. But for now, I think she's at the tail end of less meta, right behind Yamato. And, if that feels high, I sort of agree, but being red and blue in this set is a pretty good combo, so bumped her up a little bit. Next up, we have the evolution of the film package with DoFILMingo, double film searchers, board spam capabilities, green purple Doffy can keep up with a lot of decks if it can set up. That said, Red Rock, once again, huge pain in the butt. But if Doffy can manage to get his pieces onto the board, this deck can be a pain to deal with, right? So Doffy is firmly in meta, right behind Whitebeard. Next up is Black and Blue Rebecca, and while I underestimated her when she was first revealed, I have since learned that the Dressrosa type cards are strong. Orlumbus and Kyros are incredible together, and access to control cards like Red Rock, like 3000 Worlds, makes this honestly a really dangerous deck to most of her counterparts. And Gear 4th Luffy is just an absolute beast. So with that said, Rebecca is definitely meta between Zoro and Whitebeard. Last but not least, we gotta talk about Queen. Blue and yellow doesn't inherently make a ton of sense together, right? But I think we talk about Queen the same way we were talking about Black and Yellow Big Mom from the last set. Queen is a defensive powerhouse, and Queen probably has access to some of the best healing in the game, even if his effect is pretty specific. That said, I think you can go wide against Queen, or even maybe Big Mom him to death, so I am only putting him at the top of less meta, right above Doffy. But wait, there's one more deck we need to talk about. And no, it's not going to be the starter deck leaders. I'm not going to go into them yet because those are coming out in like November, right? But once they do start coming out, once we get closer to that time frame, I will be making a new tier list that'll have those included. But no, I gotta talk about the God of Jank. And for this set, I gotta give it to that janky Wombo combo that I concocted in spoiler season. And that deck is the Unblockable Rush Bluffy deck, which uses Vivi to give your blue Luffy Rush, and then use Diable Jam to make it unblockable. And that goes firmly behind Pacifista Nami in the God of Jank tier list, because Pacifista Nami is still probably the dumbest idea I've ever come up with. But that is a tier list. I think Law and Zoro are going to be in the top of the meta once again, but I do think that Rebecca can make a run for the crown. Croc and Yamato are kind of in my sort of dark horse candidates list, and Smoker and Big Mom are still in my will always rank high list. Anyway, let me know what you think down below in the comments. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? And if you want to check out more OP04 deck lists, check out this video here. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And Captains, remember, build what you like, play what you love, and I'll catch you in the next video.